Good morning. At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for Thursday, November 1. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen. Here. Commissioner Klicka.
Here.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. All are present. We do have a quorum. Would you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those who are present, if you have a noise-making device, would ask that you turn it to silent mode or off so as not to interfere with our electronic communications. We do not have any presentations to make this morning, so we'll turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's anyone present who would like to address the commission on an item which does not later appear on the agenda, would invite you to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to 5 minutes, and we'll be glad to receive that information. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission during the public comment period of our agenda? There being no one to be heard, the public comment portion of our agenda is concluded. I do have several notes for the record this morning. I will be signing the following administrative resolution number WD 18-040, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and providing for the assessment of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of the consolidated main sewer district in the vicinity of 157th Street and El Monte Street. Also, administrative resolution number WD 18-041, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and provide for the assessments of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of the consolidated main sewer district in the vicinity of 167th Street and Quivira Road. Also, administrative resolution number 18-042, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and provide for the assessment of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of the consolidated main sewer district in the vicinity of 143rd Street and Larson. And finally, administrative resolution number WD 18-043, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and provide for the assessment of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of the consolidated main sewer district in the vicinity of 113th Street and South Crestone Street. That concludes the notes for the record. Moving to the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda items?
Item number 1, consider approving the October 11th, 2018 business session minutes. Item number 2, consider ratifying the chairman's appointment of Afam Akamelo to the REACH Kansas Community Advisory Committee through May 31st, 2021. Item number 3, consider appointing Andrew Ramos as the 3rd District Representative to the Southeast Consolidated Zoning Board through December 31st, 2021. Item number 4, consider appointing J.P. Smith as the 2nd District Representative to the Commission on Aging through August 31st, 2021. Item number 5, consider ratifying the chairman's appointment of Ann Melia to the Solid Waste Management Committee as the Citizens Organization representative through July 8th, 2020. Item number 6, consider ratifying the chairman's Solid Waste Management Committee reappointments of Scott Martin as the private industry representative and Raymond Manley as the general public representative through July 8th, 2021. Item number 7, consider reappointing Marcia H. Bailey and Janet Fanska as the 1st District representatives to the Consolidated Fire District Number 2 through August 25th, 2021. And item number 8, consider authorizing the purchase of various pieces of fleet equipment for Johnson County wastewater from competitively solicited contracts in an amount not to exceed $632,020.68.
Thank you. Is there a commissioner who would like any of these items considered separately? Is there anyone present who would like to have one of these items considered separately? If not, so back before the commission, a motion is in order. Mr. Osterhaus.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Klicka.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving to the action agenda, item number 9.
Resolution number 090-18, SW-SP-3426, GA. Consider a request from the Fire District Number 1 of Johnson County for a special permit to allow the continued use of an existing fire station and related site improvements on approximately 3 acres on property zone PEC 3, Planned Light Industrial Park District, located at 490 New Century Parkway.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, Planning Director. This item is for a special permit at New Century Parkway out at the airport. It was reviewed by the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board on September 26th. That group recommended unanimous approval of this item. This is for, give you a better idea of a graphic here, it's for a 672 square foot carport was what initiated it. It was originally approved through, or the first time this was presented before you was for a conditional use permit that is now being transitioned into a special permit, which would run in perpetuity. And these type of uses with public buildings and public facilities, it's a better practice, I think, to let these go for a longer term, and that's why that was recommended before, and the creation of a special permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Questions? Ms. Klicka.
Jay, you said so as long as it's being used for this purpose, that permit holds in place.
Yes, that is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. Is there anyone present who would like to address the commission on this item? There's no one to be heard. It's back before the commission. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I move to adopt resolution number 090-18, approving a special permit to allow the continued use of an existing fire station or related site improvements for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth within the resolution.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution in regards to Fire District Number 1 and their current facility being used. Any further questions or discussion? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leipzig, the neighbors are satisfied with a 6-foot privacy fence?
Yes, that was reviewed with the zoning board as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. The motion is before us. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Klicka.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 10, application number SW-PP-FP-3429GA. Plat exception numbers 11-1-18A, B, and C. Consider a request from Michael Gametz, applicant landowner, for a preliminary and final plat to be known as White Deer Trails replat for one residential lot on 55 acres on property zoned RUR, Rural District, located at 14645 Kill Creek Road.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, Planning Director. This item was reviewed by the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board on September 26, 2018. That board recommended unanimous approval of this item. We're requesting one residential lot with 2 waivers to the minimum infrastructure requirements and 3 plat exceptions. And this is an item that really there are no changes to the existing plat boundaries. The only difference is there is a setback difference from 100 feet to 50 feet. Is really the only change on this. So we're calling it's a replat of Lot 2, which creates Lot 3. But that is the only change on this item. And staff is also recommending approval of this item.
Okay, so it is just simply a setback differential.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Mr. Brown?
Question, Mr. Lipsig, were neighbors notified, had opportunity for input?
Yes, Commissioner, we went through our notification requirement before it went to the Southwest Zoning Board.
Thank you.
Question.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lippick, what are the relative merits of a 100-foot setback versus a 50-foot setback? How do you come up with that number?
Commissioner, it basically varies upon the really the size of the acreage. In this particular parcel, this is very good sized. Frankly, this is an example where if the county had a mechanism for a minor plat amendment, this would be brought together as a minor plat amendment. So it's a very minimal thing, especially as we're not changing the boundaries of the plat itself. It's more just on the setback, and it's more of a critical item if it's a smaller parcel. But in something like this, with large as it is, it's fairly minimal in terms of the impact.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Mr. Leipzig, so are you looking at, and you used the term minor plat amendments, is that something that you're considering putting together as a proposal for?
Yes,
Very good.
Commissioner, we have just talked briefly with the Planning Commission about it. There's several instances where we could utilize a minor plat amendment, but however, I'm still working with the legal department. Mr. Lind and I are still having those discussions, but we have talked about it very briefly with the Planning Commission. It's something we'd like to kind of look at in more detail here in the next few months.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone present who would like to speak to this issue? All right, if not, it's back before the commission. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I move to approve a preliminary and final plat for one residential lot to be known as White Deer Trails replat, and 2 waivers from minimum infrastructure requirements and 3 plat exceptions for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by the zoning board.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the application as noted. Any further comments or discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen. Aye. Commissioner Klicka.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 11, application number SW-PPFP-3430MC. Consider a request from Tim Gates, applicant, and Berthel LLC landowner for the preliminary and final plat approval for 3 residential lots to be known as Bernard's Plat on approximately 255 acres zoned RUR, Rural District, located at 19195 County Line Road.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, the Planning Department. This item just south of 191st Street is for the applicant is Tim Gates. This is brought before the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board on September 26, 2018. That board recommended unanimous approval of this item. Staff, our technical recommendation was denial, but that was because we're talking about one of the provisions is access onto an arterial road, which in the RUR district, which has been changed as of last week when we went through the subdivision regulations and those proposed changes. So with that, staff is comfortable recommending approval of this item as well.
Okay, so that change is consistent with, or the change in policy is consistent with this recommendation?
Yes, that is
Zoning
correct,
Board?
sir, in the RUR district.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Is there anyone present who would like to address this item?
I'm Tim Gates. I'm just here. I can
Yep.
answer any questions, but we kind of went through it last week.
Okay, you are the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Brown, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to approve a preliminary and final plat for 3 residential lots to be known as Bernard Plat for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by the zoning board.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution as recommended. Any further questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen. Aye. Commissioner Klicka.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
and Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried.
I don't usually get to vote early. That was kind of fun. Hey, something
I
different.
think you got moved into District 3.
Get to vote twice.
Vote early, vote often.
All right, motion carried on item number 11. Are there any other items to consider on the action agenda?
No, sir.
All right, moving to reports and communications, Ms. Bostoke Ferguson.
Chairman and Commissioners, you have before you one item this morning, and it's a follow-up item to one that we presented last week regarding the City of Overland Park Avenue 82 redevelopment TIF project plan. Last month, we informed you of their notice for public hearing. They had their hearing on October 15th, and this is just now notice of approval. So you have had the detailed information in your previous packets, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Questions, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bostoke Ferguson, could you remind us, is this TIF part of the 90% rule in terms of capping the TIF amount? Do we know that yet?
I'm not sure. We can double check and let you know.
Okay.
I think it is, but we'll double check.
Thank you.
Get back to you.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. No other reports and communications. We'll turn to commission comments. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one, I attended the contractor licensing program education on Monday morning and fulfilled my obligation to continuing education as a contractor and a member of the program. And it was well attended, it was well run, as it always is. Contractor licensing is a very smooth operating machine. And of the folks that I talked to, many of which I didn't know, I walked up and just asked how it was going. Everybody was very satisfied. So contractor licensing continues to impress. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Osterhaus.
Just one thing, live well, age well. Johnson County Parks and Rec put that together. The Marriott, I know the chairman was there, Penny was there, I think Aaron was there as well. Plus many of our staff that were there to present, and it's a great opportunity for our senior community as well as anyone who's interested in living better, healthier lives to meet with some vendors and opportunities for them to just learn about various things. Get your hearing tested, you know, there's just a million things. So if you haven't had a chance to do it, you should go next year and check it out. It's very informative, and it was very well attended. The place was packed when I was there, so thank you.
It was very busy when I was there also. Mr. Allen?
Yes, attended the Kansas City Area Transit Board meeting this week, and they're working on their strategic plan and kind of a change in course. They're looking at all modes of transportation. It hasn't hit Johnson County. The scooters are pretty active on the Missouri side, but they're looking at current and future autonomous vehicles, how to integrate all that into a future transportation system. There's a couple other exciting things potentially that are going to happen here shortly that'll involve Johnson County also.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ashcraft.
Just one item, Mr. Chairman, and from time to time I bring forward an issue of protocol. This week, I think there was a significant event, and I wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clickham.
I'll pay, nothing. Thank you.
Nothing.
Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things this past week. Last Thursday evening, had the pleasure to attend the Johnson County Arts and Heritage Center Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. The chair was there as well. Thank you, Ed. Friday morning, had a great opportunity to visit Meadowbrook Park. It's under construction as we speak. It will be grand when it's open. We're hoping for a completion date before the end of the year. We've had some unfortunate weather delays and some contractor delays, but it's going along nicely now. You can get a feel for it if you have a chance to drive by. It'll be a great park for our citizens in the northeast part of the county. Saturday morning, the City of Mission has a very active group of individuals who want to place a dog park in Mission. They're considering a number of sites, and they had their first pop-up site Saturday morning at the Broadmoor Park. It was quite well attended. A lot of people were there, and I think it'll be success when they finally find a place to put it. And number 4, 913 section yesterday, an article written by Hannes Zacharias himself, Tapping the Soul of a River. It's a great article. It's a cover page and a 3-page article inside, written by none other than Hannes as he cruised the Arkansas River. And we're glad he's home safe and sound.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, you mentioned the Meadowbrook Park. One, I think that's going to be very, very popular, seasonal, is the sledding hill that's being constructed or will be constructed at the Meadowbrook Park. And so it's going to be a fine, fine park with a lot of activities. I did have an opportunity to attend the Unity meeting at Kalaith Israel Synagogue Tuesday evening, and area faith leaders were there, and they all spoke. A very, very large crowd. I wouldn't quote a number because I've seen numbers all the way from 3,000 to 1,000, but it was a very, very large crowd, and thanks to those who were involved. Tomorrow morning is the Olathe School District Foundation breakfast, so many of us, several of us, will be attending that. There is no request for an executive session, so that concludes our agenda. We will come back after a short break for agenda review, also agenda review for PBC, and then we also have a committee of the whole scheduled for 11 a.m., update on the medical examiner's office. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen. Here. Commissioner Klicka.
He's out of the
He's in the
room.
building. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Would the clerk please read the proposed agenda items?
Item number 1, consider approval of an agreement between the county and Shawnee Mission Unified School District allowing Ryan Jacobson, MD, Emergency Medical Director, to assist the district by reviewing and signing the district's opioid antagonist protocol and training the school nurse in administration of opioid antagonists. The initial term of the agreement will expire on the last day of the 2019 school year, but the agreement will renew for additional one-year terms absent 30 days' notice given by either party.
Okay. This is a proposed consent agenda item. Is Eugene Marsh or anyone from Public Health here to address this issue?
No, Chairman, she's actually not here, and this is actually not a Department of Health and Environment issue. It's our medical director through EMS. Eugene's name is on here, I think by error. We have our attorney here who's worked on the issue if we have any legal questions. But essentially, this just allows Dr. Jacobson to perform this duty for the Shawnee Mission School District. I have conferred with him in terms of his workload. He said it's a very, very minimal amount of his oversight. We think this is an excellent way to partner with our school districts on this important issue.
Okay. Do you know, will there be other districts involved in this activity?
I would highly suspect we will be hearing from others, yes.
Would hope so.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have had that conversation with our medical director. If in fact they request that, again, he's confident that that's something he can do within his current workload.
Okay. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow on to your question, I think was appropriate. Is this a service that would be available to all school districts as well as maybe other governmental or non-governmental units to assist? I'm just wondering how that works. I'm not opposed to the idea, but just trying to understand what the volume might be and what the implications are.
My understanding, and this is probably an issue limited to our 6 school districts. So again, I would anticipate that we may hear from the other school districts, and we are prepared to meet that request if they request it of us.
Okay. And is this like it's training of one person, so like a consultation over time?
That's
It's
correct.
not like having a sit-down class, okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Train the trainer, as they say.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Chairman. Is the county taking on or accepting any legal liability in moving this forward and assisting? I would just like to know if there's downside for us in providing something for free.
Commissioner Ryan Carpenter from Legal. The statute that enables the districts and municipalities to do this carves out a very, very liberal immunity to it. His practice is limited in scope. Everything's drafted that the same protections that apply to the county would apply to him. He's not an employee of the school district, just limited for that purpose, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, we'll keep this on consent. Thank you very much. Action agenda item 2. Mr. Allen was absent, so the minutes will stay on action. Item number 3.
Resolution number 075-18, application numbers NW-RN2-3408, OL, and NW-PPFP-3409. Consider a request from William Carter, applicant, landowner, for a 1, rezoning from RLD, Residential Low Density District, to Residential Neighborhood 2 District, and 2, preliminary and final plat for 2 residential lots on approximately 5 acres located at 13115 Lakeshore Drive.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This item is from the Northwest Consolidated Zoning Board by Mr. Carter. To give you a quick overview, the BOCC remanded this application back to the Zoning Board on September 20th, 2018 for further discussion on direct access to the arterial street. On October 15th, 2018, the Zoning Board discussed the application and reaffirmed the original recommendation of approval of the rezoning and preliminary and final plat, which included a waiver from direct access to the arterial street In addition, I'm requiring a shared driveway entrance that was provided in that original recommendation. So going back, just to give you a quick summary, it was originally presented for the Northwest Zoning Board on July 16th. There was considerable discussion at that meeting. Then the board voted to delay it and bring it back on August 20th. That is when they recommended denial of that application. Then it was brought back to you, and then it was remanded back on October 15th was the date on that. So what Mr. Carter is requesting, he does want to have direct access for his Lot 2 off of Lakeshore Drive, and the original proposal was to ask for that direct access onto into Lot 2. The zoning board recommended a shared drive between Lot 1 and Lot 2, and that was viewed as kind of a compromise on that, and staff was comfortable with that compromise. And then after further consideration by the applicant, decided to go back and try to get the separate entrance back into Lot 2. So in other words, didn't like the idea of a shared drive, but have two separate entrances and being able to keep the existing drive for Lot 1. So that's kind of a summary of where we're at. Staff is reaffirming our recommendation consistent with the zoning board that be denied, but we are comfortable with the shared access, the shared drive between lots 1 and 2, which is consistent with the zoning board recommendation.
Okay, so to restate, the zoning board as well as the staff is opposed to the additional access, is that right?
That is correct, sir.
The shared access would come at what point? There is a dotted red line?
Yeah, essentially that still would need to be determined, but it's basically right between the two lots, or the red dashed line is where that would occur. And part of that, the zoning board recommendation was to remove the current drive of Lot 1 and then so that to remove that drive. The other part of this application, and if we'll give you an idea of what's happening around it, 131st Street there on the right side of your screen, that will be extended over to Lakeshore eventually, but we don't know when. That could be approximately 10 years. And so the idea is that when that happens, which all the activity going on around it, we just don't know when, but that Mr. Carter will have to connect his entrance to his home off of 131st anyway. Long term, I think I see that as a possibility. So this is not an easy case. It's one of those that is confusing. And we are in the R1 zoning district, so this is different in terms of the granting access. If you may recall, our text amendments last week were in the RUR district. This is a residential zoning district, and that's why the arterial road access is so significant.
And the reason that the applicant does not want to provide a shared driveway?
Mr. Chairman, I believe he had a buyer that was a little skeptical, or that was kind of interested in looking at Lot 2 and purchasing Lot 2, but they were reluctant to utilize a shared drive, and so that land sale fell through. But essentially, that was the initial recommendation.
Okay. And okay, make sure I understand. You mentioned the shared drive would align with what street, or would it?
The shared driveway would be basically between the dash line there, between Lot 1 and 2.
All right. Questions? Mr. Osterhauser.
Jay, it looks like just underneath the red line there, is that a fence line? Is that what that?
That is correct, sir.
So that would have to be removed then for the shared driveway? What the
yes.
plan kind of is. Was that factored into the decision at all, like the?
It was, Commissioner. I'm going to ask Diane Wickland to elaborate on that further, just to make sure I'm correct in what I'm telling you.
Diane Wicklund, Planning Department. So the shared driveway location, as Jay said, is where this red dash line is. You can see that fence line. And actually, at the last minute at the last zoning board meeting, Mr. Carter also produced a plat that would angle that common lot line to match up with that fence. And so that might be something, depending on what the board does and discusses next week, he might want to share that plat drawing, and that's in your packet as well. I can show it to you now if you want, but so he might talk to you about wanting that particular drawing approved so that it would be an angled and it would match up with, in line with that fence. So
it just seems to, the fence runs that way, that tree line runs that way. It just kind of seems almost like a natural. But okay, thank you.
All right, one question, Mr. Leipzig. This comes to us with the recommendation from the zoning board and the staff for denial. Were the commission to make a different decision, does it only require a majority?
I'm looking at Mr. Jarrett, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown?
Just one quick question. On Lake Shore, 1 mile section between 127th and 135th, Santa Fe, I'd like to know how many driveways are access pointed in that 1 mile stretch, and how does that compare to an average in the county?
Okay. Mr. Brown, I can answer part of your question. Right now, we believe the count that we have on that 1 mile stretch is between 28 and 30. So there are several access points along Lake Shore. This access point, if it's roughly between the lot 1 and 2, would be about 215 feet between entranceways. And I'll get the other information to kind of get an average from the others. But just by my opinion, kind of looking at it without being a real scientific approach, I would say roughly about every 200 feet or so. Okay. It is there are a lot of curb cuts along Lake Shore there.
Okay. Other questions? Well, this is a zoning item, so it will remain on action. Next item.
Number 4, consider approving the 2019 audit plan proposed by the county auditor.
Mr. Kleffner.
Well, Chairman, Audit Commissioners, good morning. Ken Kleffner from Audit Services. I'm presenting a proposed audit plan for 2019 for your review and consideration. But before I discuss the proposed plan itself, I want to share with you the status of the various projects and activities that we've worked on during 2018. And that's what you see before you, the status of the 2018 audit plan. Basically, 3 categories: planned audits, unplanned audits, and other professional services. In the planned audit category, we completed the MedAct transition audit, published the report in August of this year. We currently have 2 countywide audits underway. Those are the cybersecurity and disaster recovery planning and the physical security management and employee safety audits. Both of those audits started in early July, and I anticipate I anticipate reporting the results of those in the first quarter of 2019. Regarding the next 3 audits, Human Services, Department of Corrections, Contract Management Activities and Practices, we did not start any effort on those audits in 2018. Moving to the unplanned audit category, we were asked by the Director of Health and Environment to review the coroner's office prior to that function transferring to Health and Environment on January 1st of this year. The coroner's office audit was published in March of this year. The Leadership Business Expense Authorization Audit was a limited scope audit and was published in May of this year. The Johnson County Sheriff's Office Revenue Audit was really a spinoff of the transition audit we performed in 2017, and the revenue audit was published in June of this year, and that essentially looked at cash handling activities, how the sheriff is managing his accounts receivable program, and the inmate welfare fund. Lastly, Audit Services was asked by the Law Library Board of Trustees in April of this year to conduct a performance audit of the Law Library. We are planning to report the audit results to the Board of Trustees late fourth quarter of this year, this month or next. Moving to the other professional services category, We performed a staffing analysis at the Sheriff's Office as a non-audit or consulting service for Sheriff Hayden. We reported the results to Sheriff Hayden in February of this year. And just as a side note, that particular staffing analysis study covered 84% of the sworn and 58% of the civilian personnel in the Sheriff's Office. So in essence, 2018 has been a busy year for us. And so let me pause for just a moment, see if you might have any questions regarding that.
Questions? This information, as I recall, was presented to the Audit Committee.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, moving on to the proposed plan for 2019. Some background first, I think, is necessary. Board Resolution number 080-94, which is the Internal Audit Charter, requires that I follow a process that allocates audit resources based upon two criteria. First, assessing risk within the county, and secondly, focusing efforts on high-value, high-risk audits. And I believe the audit plan I'm proposing to you this morning meets those objectives. The proposed audit plan considers our 2017 update to the risk assessment. It reflects those county departments and agencies that have recently experienced a transition in leadership. It considers the length of time elapsed since the county department or agency has been audited. The proposed plan has been vetted and coordinated with the county manager and her leadership staff. And lastly, the audit committee reviewed this proposal and approved it at the audit committee meeting on October 11th. So in 2019, I'm recommending 5 audits. I'm suggesting the 3 audits that we did not start in 2018, carry forward to 2019. And those audits are, again, Human Services, Department of Corrections, and Contract Management Activities and Practices. And a couple of comments regarding those. Audit Services, at least to the best of my knowledge, has never audited Human Services. The Contract Management Activities and Practices, that audit will focus on how contracts are managed in a post-award environment. You see there, number 3, a cybersecurity audit. Some background on that. An organization's cybersecurity program should have a framework that addresses or includes 5 functions or components. And I've identified those 5 components to the right of the narrative. Those 5 components are identify, protect, detect, respond, and recovery. So the cybersecurity audit that we are performing this year in 2018 is a countywide assessment of the respond and recovery components, those last 2. In 2019, I'm proposing that our audit attention focus on the first 3 components, identify, protect, and detect. I also want to mention that the internal audit profession, the profession I'm in, recommends that every annual audit plan have a cybersecurity audit, and I believe that just makes good business sense for Johnson County. Next, I'm proposing an audit of developmental supports. It's been in excess of 10 years since we have performed an audit in developmental supports. The Community Support Provider Program and all the various activities and services performed within that program received a relatively high score on our recent risk assessment update. In the other professional services category, our government auditing standards require a peer review every 3 years. Our first peer review was in November of 16. We will be due for our second peer review in the fall of 2019. Now, I mention that specifically because it does require resources on our part, not only during the time of the peer review being performed, but that program requires that we reciprocate in that members of my staff go out and look at other audit organizations. So, for example, I believe it's the first week of December, Lynn Smith in Audit Services is going to Suffolk County, New York to perform a peer review. Yeah, excuse me. Audit Services facilitated the county's first countywide risk assessment in 15. We updated that assessment in 17, and I'm proposing a second update in 2019. And that biennial schedule just seems to work best for everyone concerned. And as I do with every audit plan, I like to allocate and put aside some hours for the consulting work, and I've done that as well in 19. And finally, we will also continue to support our audit follow-up program in 2019. So those are basically the audits and activities I'm proposing, and I welcome any questions that you might have, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kleffner, the 3 items which you were not able to start, I'm assuming were impacted by the unplanned activities that occurred, and I would just caution that those might again, unplanned activities might arise in 2019.
Yes, sir, that's been my experience since
Okay.
20.
Mr. Clicken?
Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment the audit team here because, first of all, Ken, being on the audit committee, I appreciated the rundown you gave us here a week or two ago relative to what you're doing. I like the balance that you're taking as far as the audits. You're focusing in on some of the departments on a very comprehensive basis, such as human services and so forth. And to the public, these are not, and this is not a small task. When you're dealing with some of these departments, it's got so many arms to it that have to be reviewed, and it's not a simple process, and do understand that. But while you're focusing on the various departments, you are dealing with some of the critical things that pop up along the way, and then the ongoing process. And with that, I did make a comment during the audit committee, and I'm going to restate it here. I appreciate the attitude and the direction that you're taking is that you look at your office as a partnership with all the county departments and so forth. It's not a police gotcha type of deal. You're going in there to promote best practices and to ensure the proper training is in place, that the folks can manage our resources and our processes in the best way possible. And I do want to extend appreciation to you and your team on that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo what Commissioner Klicka just offered. And Mr. Kleffner, I would encourage you to continue your peer review efforts that will help your staff and organization generally. So very good on that. I did have one question, though, and maybe I will direct this to Mr. Waters, but on the cybersecurity efforts audit, conceptually, I understand that and I'm supportive of that, but Mr. Waters, given the transitions and the beefing up of our security efforts, is the timing for this, does this make sense? Because you've had some significant changes that are going into effect, and to do a post-audit of what we used to do versus what we're transitioning to, I'm just wondering, is that the best use of the resource?
Commissioner, I would say in conversations with Mr. Kleffner, we've talked about that quite a bit. The strategy in his office and their best practice in their industry to be reviewing all or part of cybersecurity capabilities and awareness on an annual basis. We're going to start doing this annually, no time like the present, frankly. We think that it will be another set of eyes, always beneficial. We do have an every 18-month schedule to have outside assessments, stress testing, and that sort of thing of our cybersecurity. Is now scheduled as well. So.
And thank you for that reminder. So I just, I hope we are able to complement those efforts, and it doesn't become, this sounds horrible, but a harassment of your efforts to manage by having outside evaluation and inside evaluation, because from time to time you do have to get some things done. And I hope that balance is recognized by your staff as well as the auditor.
I would, I very much appreciate that, but I would point to the comments that both you and Commissioner Klicka just made.
Okay, very good.
These have been good, successful partnerships.
Okay. One last item, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kleffner, these audits that you're proposing, will they include looking at the various departmental performance metrics and reporting on their significance, their reliability, and their use within the departments?
That's what we hope to do, yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, Mr. Allen?
Just one final question, maybe of staff. As we went through the audit on MEDAC, it was identified that we may need to look at our rate structure, the fees that are charged. Do you know where we're at on that, or?
Still in process, Commissioner. Paul and staff are looking at that now.
Thank you.
Consent.
Consent?
Consent's
Okay,
fine.
so noted. This item will be on consent.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next item.
Item number 5, consider approving and authorizing a real estate purchase contract with Flum 143 Incorporated for property acquisition of approximately 35 acres of land located north of Executive Airport in the amount of $303,344, and to authorize the reallocation and use of the airport fund reserves in an amount not to exceed $303,344 to fund the purchase.
Mr. Otto.
Good morning, Aaron Otto with the County Manager's Office. Here before you today to look at the potential purchase of about 35 acres north of Executive Airport. As you can see on the chart, Executive Airport sits at 151st and Flum, and directly north of it, there is land owned by the county, which is below that red box. Some of that area, kind of looking up as a U shape, is going to be developed as part of a housing development called the Willows. That might ring a bell because there's been talk about developing that for a number of years. The developers agreed that the area in red, which is largely the 35 acres we're talking about, will stay and is under right now an ag restriction. Translation, there will not be houses built there because of how it directly lines up with the center line of the runway approach. So the current owners of the land approached the Airport Commission and asked the question if the airport would like to own the land under the same restrictions. The Airport Commission did vote in favor of buying this land and keeping the ag restriction in place. A couple other things to know about this: there will be a trail that's required by a walking trail required by the City of Olathe that will be in the northern part of this, but we've worked with the developer and it will be maintained by the Homeowners Association in the area about how to get ag equipment over it and work through those details. The one other thing, and we may go down one or two more slides, the developer also owns this very random, less than right around a quarter acre of land. It's this little sliver directly east of existing county land. And so they are conveying that also as part of this agreement to the county just to square it off. And it's not accessible by a road, and it's just a remnant piece that they're turning over as well. And that's what gets us up to about the 35 acres. So it's 20 cents a square foot, which gets you up to about $303,000 that are coming from the Airport Fund Reserve. And that's what I have for you today.
Mr. Otto, let me ask you this. The housing subdivision that you mentioned, that's in the city of Olathe?
It is, and it will be coming here because I think in a couple of weeks also for further conversation.
And it'll be what approximation to the airport or the runway? Bordering?
I'm sorry?
What approximation will that housing development be to the runway or the airport property?
So if we go back to the first slide, oh, actually, there you go. Go back one to there you go. That shows the future development that's anticipated and where this land sits in relation to it. So where it says ag and the hash out, that's what's being purchased. Directly south of it is land already owned by the county to protect the runway. So this development will end up on the east and west side of it. The land in the center is a different property owner that's not in question.
There have been activities in the past that I'm aware of where there have been I would encourage the city of Olathe to have some process of notification for lot developers or lot buyers that there is a proximity to an airport, so that there is a record that whomever buys or develops those properties are aware of that.
It's tattooed on their forehead.
Yeah, something.
Almost.
It needs to be transferred to each individual lot.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I would hope that they would include something like that. Mr. Brown?
This discussion came up at the airport board meeting, and there will be language connected to the title work that survives closing each time, that transfers from owner to owner, that indicates and they accept that they are within an airport operations area and understand the risk and the responsibility with that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Otto, just capsulize this for me. Is this acquisition necessary, and is it the best use of those funds?
Sure. I think the rate is reasonable.
No,
that's
I agree
what
with
ag restricted rate in the county would sell for. So I think that's reasonable for both parties. Anytime that you have an opportunity to own land that's directly in line with the runway, especially in that proximity, if you talk to our Deputy Director, Larry Peed, who has a great aviation background, you'd seriously take a look at it. And this was definitely discussed and talked about exactly from the point you brought up in terms of use of funds. But the Airport Commission did vote in favor to move forward with this, to bring it to you.
Very good. I just wanted to, for the record, thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Purchasing this piece of land, Commissioner Ashcraft, the conversation has come up and has been a discussion that I've had with other folks involved in the aviation industry, is that it is connected buying this piece of land helps to ensure the longevity of the airport itself. It provides a landing place in the event of an emergency landing that causes there not to be housing, not to be people there. That extends the life of the airport itself. So this, in my opinion, I was there for the discussion, and there were differing views about it, but this was the decision that the board came to, and I'm supportive of it too. It makes sense to do it this way.
Yeah, very good. This is a land purchase, probably should ought to remain on action. So, next item.
Thank you.
Item number 6, resolution number 091-18, application number SE-AD-UP-3428AU. Consider a request from Dave Webb, applicant, and Webb Family LLP, landowner, for an amendment to an accessory dwelling unit permit on 70 acres on property zoned RUR, Rural Zoning District, located at 4815 West 191st Street.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This application submitted by Mr. Webb just south of 191st Street is the Southeast Consolidated Zoning Board met on October 16th of this year and unanimously recommended approval of this item before you. This really is a clarification of an existing ADU application that was submitted. There we go. That was submitted to you and approved by this body on November the 9th of 2017 for an 1,800 square foot accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is actually, what they're doing is proposing the finishing of the basement of that structure for an additional 1,400 square feet in the basement, but they're not changing the existing building footprint or the exterior facade of the building at all, just the basement finish.
Questions? Okay, well, this is a land use item, so we'll remain on action. Next item.
Item number 7, consider approving an agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation, KDOT, for the reconstruction of I-35 under 75th Street for the purpose of relieving traffic congestion and improving peak travel time performance of I-35 at an amount not to exceed $1,650,000.
Well, Mr. Petey, congratulations. And Mr. Allen, congratulations. It took a while, but hopefully we're there. Would you explain?
Yes. Well, good morning, Brian Petey. This is you're correct. We've discussed this for several years. This is the agreement between KDOT and the county for the county to provide $1.65 million for the local match for the improvement of I-35 in the 75th Street area. The discussion with the CARS committee was a somewhat reluctant, as this board was, use of the CARS program to provide these fundings, and we contemplate we'll use the CARS 2020 and 2021 programs to provide this matching funds. The anticipated construction date would be 2020. It would take that construction season to complete the project. It's a fairly straightforward agreement. We're not administering the project or doing anything other than just providing local match.
Well, I know there was discussion about using the CARS funding, but we had, at least 2 or 3 cities that are adjacent to that bottleneck, and so I think it's entirely appropriate to come to that understanding. So, other questions, Mr. Glickman?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I appreciate all the efforts that you did to get this done. I appreciate the use of the CAR funds and so forth to get it done. My only concern has been, this is a state project. This should have been done the right way to begin with. And I agree with Commissioner Allen. It comes to a point that we have to take charge of this in order to protect the needs of our citizens. But it's frustrating that the financial conditions of the Department of Transportation is such that we have to take these local dollars to deal with the state highway. But regardless, it's getting done. Wish it could have been done yesterday or done right to begin with. We wouldn't be talking about it. But Brian, to you and the efforts of Commissioner and others, appreciate this moving forward.
Okay, other questions? Mr. Allen?
I just want to thank you, Brian. Long needed. I want to verify that this would add an additional lane both north and southbound.
Correct. That's the
hopefully.
Essence of the scope of
It's
the
a
project.
good incremental improvement, maybe not the end result that needs to be done, but it's positive.
Do we have an idea of the timeline? Once
Construction's
construction
contemplated
is
for 2020.
How much?
2020 would be the anticipated construction.
For what period of time?
It will take that season.
It'll take the whole season to get it done. All right.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pedic, is it true that the department will be rechristened the Jim Allen Department of Transportation? I had heard that rumor. I just was wondering.
I think a couple signs would be appropriate.
Thank you.
If they have the money.
If we pay for it.
That may be questionable.
Consent.
All right, consent or action?
Consent.
Consent, all right, so noted. Next item.
We are sitting as the governing board of Fire District Number 2. Number 8, consider approving the contracts for the Johnson County Fire District Number 2 benefit plan year beginning December 1st, 2018 as follows. 1, renew the Humana for medical coverage at an estimated annual cost not to exceed $461,245. 2, contract with Principal for dental coverage at an annual estimated cost not to exceed $42,837. 3, contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City, Blue KC, to furnish vision coverage at an estimated annual cost of $4,493. And 4, contract with Johnson County to be included under the county's life insurance policy with Cigna at an estimated cost of $5,836.
Okay, to restate, this will be considered as an action of the Fire Board and the Board of County Commissioners sitting thereof. Chief, any comments?
Good morning, Jim Francis, Fire District 2. The Fire District does renew on December 1st each year. This year, several months ago, I met with the county benefits manager regarding taking a look at our existing plan. I believe they had, Cameron's here today, they had locked and looked at our plan. We got the insurance renewal from our broker EBP, who shops the market with different vendors or carriers every year. So we did come back with a 3.1% increase, which was very favorable to stay with the renewal for Humana. At the time, they did look to see if it was would be cost effective to put us under a county plan, if that were even possible. That was reviewed. It was determined we're best to stay where we're at. There would be additional charges if we did go to another route.
Okay, questions?
Do we have an idea what those, Cameron, can you tell us what the differences would have been? Were they substantial?
Yes, with the county currently having a $350,000 specific deductible, if we were to try to include the fire district, if they had, excuse me, one catastrophic claim, that pretty much would expend their entire annual premium almost.
Will that over another year or so, will it start balancing out a little better?
Not as long as with the current funding arrangement and us having the same specific stop-loss deductible, it would never be feasible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, other questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I appreciate you looking at the options that might be available to pool and consolidate for what might be cost beneficial for both your department and the county. I was just wondering if that analysis might be expanded to the other fire districts to see if there might be some benefit in terms of coordinating. And I'll direct the question to Mr. Thompson, since he seems to be the shell answer man when it comes to such things.
Since I made the mistake of making eye contact.
Fair point.
We are having a conversation currently with one other rural fire district about those possibilities, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I think that information needs to be carefully evaluated, any information along those lines, and that we not overreact in that regard. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, how many total employees do you have that benefit from this?
We have 49 members on the health plan.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, well, this will be specific action related to the fire board, so it will remain on action. Thank you, Chief. Are there any other items?
No, sir.
Okay. I should make this comment, and I think I'm correct in this. Next week, we will have a timing change in the order of consideration of our agenda. The Transportation Task Force meets in Johnson County out at K-State Olathe. I and some other members of the board need to participate in that activity sometime around 11 or 11:15. So as I recall, we've decided to schedule the PBC meeting first at 9:30, and that will be the first consideration. And then we will move to the regular agenda and agenda review. So depending upon how many of us have to leave and what time, Mr. Osterhaus, as the senior member, you might be prepared.
I'm ready to go, Chairman.
All right. I'm assuming that Mr. Allen and Mr. Brown and myself will probably be at that Transportation Task Force. So,
Do we know what's going to happen with this task force as of Tuesday of next week? There will be at least a new governor, whichever way or however it maps out. Have any of them given any indication as far as the efforts that these folks are, including yourselves, are putting into this task force of whether or not it's going to be for naught?
Mr.
Yes,
go ahead, Jim.
Question. So I'm optimistic. I think, though, the one thing that's been pretty consistent is the number one priority is frankly maintenance, and because of the dollar amount, and if you spend $1,000 a day, you can prevent something from costing you $10,000 in a couple of years, and just statewide. And frankly, a lot of these smaller counties that if a bridge goes out or a main road and the state doesn't have the money to do those repairs, to get their children to school and to move their agricultural products is a big deal. And so maintenance, to me, it's probably clearly risen to the top. You have to take care of what you already have statewide.
Is part of the process that you're going through is a review of the financial, the next 5-10 years financial resources that are going to be generated? A concern is like what we discussed today. Johnson County is ponying up $1.6 million to help cover a DOT issue, and I feel for the rural areas too with bridges and some of their roads. And I'm just curious: is anything going on relative to the long-term funding strategy, or are we just going to be limping along for a while?
Mr. Brown.
The overall funding strategy has been discussed. It's recognized it costs money to accomplish, whether you're talking about maintenance or you're talking about improvement, costs big money.
Bucks.
And everybody recognizes that that's in the room. Money has to be a consideration. But this is a legislative task force, not a governor appointed. It's not governor driven. It is legislatively driven. So it's House and Senate driven. That you have to understand and recognize and put a scope on what needs to be done before you can figure out how what's it cost, and but you've got to know what do you need, and that is what the traveling around the state has been about, is to determine area by area what are the needs, the greatest needs, and putting those into a priority. Maintenance has been at the top of the list from the very first meeting, the discussion of maintenance. There are some other places where there are improvements that desperately need to be made for safety reasons. But it is driven by the legislature. So regardless of who becomes governor, this will get onto their plate.
They'll be considering the results.
Yes, it's legislative driven now. It'll become a governor issue later.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Allen.
Steve, they are looking at funding sources, and one of the things they'd like to get out of that would be dedicated money. There may be some compromises, but they'd like to have where
gas tax.
Well, whatever it is, I don't know whatever money that is due, they'd like to have where it can't be obviously used elsewhere. That whatever they come up with, they'd like to have a consistent funding source where they know it's dedicated revenue, where you can't take it. So that's one of their goals. Hopefully, they can accomplish.
Okay. Well, thank you for that report, Mr. Ashcraft.
I was just wondering, does that include expanding the toll system?
I think all that stuff's on the table.
It is. It's on the table. There are multiples, including but not limited to, that you think about what we pay. I don't think any of us on this dais have an electric vehicle, but if you have an electric vehicle, you're not paying gas tax.
I know.
So you're not contributing in, you're still using the road, so there's been a conversation about maybe there should be a mileage tax.
And a lot of times you may not
based on
even be
usage.
paying the electric costs.
You might be getting that for
of it.
free. True,
Yeah.
depending on where you charge up.
Yeah.
So there have been, everything, right now, I will tell you, I don't believe, Jim, I've heard one thing, anyone say that anything's off the table. Right now, it's still trying to determine what needs to be done. We're still we're just getting to the Johnson County piece of what needs to be done. And there's some pretty big asks in there. There's some big ticket items, as there were in every district around the state.
Thank you.
Well, just to close out, several mayors will also be presenting next Thursday, as well as the county. So, all right, that concludes our agenda review. We are adjourned, and we'll reconvene for agenda review for the PBC meeting next week. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Wonder what, what prompted 75?
If you want, I can send you the original, because we didn't, it's not it, the actual whole project plan's not in today's.
Yeah, no, excuse me, I just want to put it on my notes.
Well,
75,
that's debatable.
interesting.
The county, so yes, the jurisdictions will still end up getting a piece of the increment.
But still, they're exercising some discretion rather than just rolling over 100% every, yeah.
At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the purpose of agenda review for next week's Public Building Commission meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka. Here. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Nyler.
Here. We do have a quorum. First item on the agenda will be approval of the August 9th special meeting minutes. Item number 2.
Request for a proposal, RFP 2017-004. Consider approving a second amendment to the J.E. Dunn Construction Design Build contract for Phase 2, guaranteed maximum price, GMP, in the amount of $143,088,051 to continue construction of the new Johnson County Courthouse for a total not to exceed $175,521,810.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Good morning, Chairman Eilert and Commissioners. I'm Brad Reinhardt with Johnson County Facilities. As read in the issue statement, this Phase 2 GMP will fund the remaining design and construction for the new Johnson County Courthouse. This will complete the balance of the building, including the concrete structure, building envelope, the tunnel extension, the interior build-out and finishes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, audiovisual, public art, demolition of the existing courthouse, and development of the county square. In November of last year, the PBC authorized an initial contract with our design builder, J.E. Dunn Construction, in the amount of $4,232,000, and this initial contract included schematic design, design development, and pre-construction services. Then, in July of this year, the PBC authorized the Phase 1 GMP amendment for earthwork, site utilities, footings and foundations, basement walls, waterproofing, and elevator systems. This amendment was in the amount of $28,201,759, and that's the construction work you currently see in progress today. Next week, we'll be requesting authorization of the Phase 2 GMP for the, with the contract amendment to J.E. Dunn in the amount of $143,088,051 for a total design and construction cost of $175,521,810. The total design and construction cost is within the overall project authorization, the project budget of $193 million. Last week, we presented to you through a committee of the whole session the updated design of the courthouse, and I have a few of those slides to run through with you this morning here. I won't go through these in great detail with you, but just touch on the items of significance. We began with project description of the finished design. It included the square footage, the stories, how we were planning to finish out the courtrooms upon opening. Talked a little bit about substantial completion date and ongoing demolition of the current courthouse and development of the square. I spent a little time visiting with you about the process we've used within our design build project delivery. We evaluated all design decisions, and there was a framework that guided our work in this regard and included the design criteria that we developed over the course of 2017, our project goals that we established, industry best practices, a competitive bidding environment, and input from all stakeholders associated with the project. These are the overarching goals that we've reviewed with you on a number of occasions. They have and will remain consistent through the life of the project. This is the updated exterior rendering of the new courthouse. It includes a view of the outdoor plaza area between the new courthouse and the City Hall, the Olathe City Hall building. And I might mention that I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but we are intending to make a presentation to the Olathe City Council, I believe November 20th, and we'll present our updated design to them as well. And this is an example or a rendering of the public corridor outside of a courtroom floor. You notice that we have an electronic docket board on the left of the entry into the courtroom. I think we mentioned this last week, but within the vestibule, or next to the vestibule of each courtroom, there are 2 meeting rooms that will be associated with each courtroom, and so that will allow for attorney-client meeting space, space for witnesses to be staged prior to testifying, so we'll have ample meeting room space to support the processes in the courthouse. This is a typical courtroom layout of the finishes and how it will be arranged. And after we went through some of the renderings with you, this was just a sampling from last week. After we went through some of the renderings with you, Jay Dunn shared some information related to the market here in Kansas City. So the construction market is quite active, quite busy. There are several significant construction projects in progress, and we have, I guess, have been in essence competing with those for resources. But in spite of that, Jay Dunn indicated, and probably because we have Jay Dunn as our design builder, we had very good bid coverage. There were 13 scopes, I believe, if I'm correct in that, that were put out for bid, and 39 bidders on those scopes of work. And in addition, Jay Dunn engaged the trade partners to help us through the process that I mentioned before around our best value design build. This table was not shared with you last week. We created it just a few days ago, but it gives you a look at the major components of the project, and the approximate cost of each of those scopes of work, and the anticipated end date for that scope. So for example, interior build out you'll see is one of the significant items here. We anticipate fall of 2020, right before opening, substantial completion. That includes all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, audio visual, the finishes, the interior walls associated with the building. We indicated the structure, the envelope, tunnel, site, and the demolition portion. So again, all completing in substantial completion at the August of 2020. Jay Dunn provided an update on the construction schedule, and of note, we had been telling you up to this point last week that we anticipated substantial completion in the fourth quarter of 2020. They have narrowed in on that and improved upon that, and our substantial completion date is now August of 2020. So we've gained several months improvement, and I think that's a testament to the process that we've employed, the design build, but also the teams that we've chosen, the consultants we've engaged, and the stakeholders' input, and really all of us coming together to work towards a common goal of making an appropriate and a very high-functioning courthouse for the county into the future. And then finally, we talked about next steps, and so I'm here today, and next week we'll be requesting approval for the Phase 2 GMP is the item at the top of that list, and we'll be coming back to you for some other items as well going forward. And so with that, just one last quick comment. Again, I want to acknowledge our design build team led by Jay Dunn, Trainer HL, Fentress Architects, Newmark Grubb Zimmer, our owner's representative, Rick Davison with CGL, our design criteria consultant. This is a significant milestone. A lot of work has gone into it. I'm very proud of the effort that's been put into it. I'm proud of where we are. And I'm very excited, too, about reaching this significant milestone. So thank you to the team, and thank you to all the stakeholders and the county manager's office and everybody that's provided support along this way, and the public as well. So this is significant. So with that, I'll stop talking and take any questions you might have.
Mr. Reinhardt, in light of some information that came about the last 24 hours on a significantly larger project in the metro area, we are on a budget and within original cost estimates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Second part of that is with interest rates having gone up here in the last couple of months, I know we did issue bonds early. Do we have any other debt that needs to be issued on this project?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, very good. I would just note this morning, I understand preliminarily there was a generator issue at the existing courthouse and it had to be evacuated. I hope it stays together before we get this one completed. Let me put it that way. So, Mr. Klicka.
You're singing my tune, Chairman. As far as appreciate the budget, looking forward to seeing the schedule keep moving forward. The other thing I was going to ask, and not trying to generate a lot of discussion on this, but as you're taking a look at the furniture and you're taking a look at the demolition and some of that stuff, is if you would keep in mind however possible, you can keep some of this going on concurrently versus going from one to the next and dragging this process, some of these processes out. I would appreciate that very much. So, and I think taking note as far as increasing in interest rates and things like that, if we're going out for a major investment on furniture and different things like that, how to move those things up is to take advantage of pricing and fixing and pricing as quick as we can, as well as maybe other expenses that we have. Good luck on that.
Okay, other questions, Mr. Allen?
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to thank you personally for your leadership on this. This is a major project for the county, and for us to tie that, at your recommendation to issue those bonds early, if I remember correctly, the interest rate is a little over 2%. We've locked that in. This project was approved just a few months before the airport in Kansas City, Missouri. And for us to have this project team, the staff, this is an excellent opportunity to show how government can function the way it's supposed to. And we made a commitment to the voters when the sales tax was approved to build a building that would make a statement for the court system, to be able to deliver that on time, on budget, with an excellent interest rate. There's a lot of people involved. It's not an easy project, but thank you, and thank you to the citizens that voted for this. We're going to live to our commitment to deliver a building on time, on budget, and do it the way it's supposed to be done. So thank you for everything that everyone in this room's
Mr. Allen, if I could go a step further on that, I think what's impressed me quite a bit too is walking over to that facility already, and you're seeing the development of that building and the basement already coming into play. And pretty soon, I'm hearing that maybe before the end of the year, we're going to start seeing us moving into the first level of that as we move forward. So that's going to be exciting. Appreciate it.
Other questions or comments? Okay, well, this will remain on action. Are there any other items to be reviewed?
No, sir.
All right, that concludes our agenda review for the special PBC Building Commission meeting next week. We are adjourned, and in a couple of minutes, we'll begin our committee of the whole presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At this time, we'll call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka.
Here.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown is in the building, and Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. First question, Mr. Reinhardt, is this informational or is action required at the conclusion?
Yes, Chairman Eilert, this is an informational update on the new medical examiner's facility, and no action is required.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Brad Reinhardt, Director of Facilities. We're here this morning, as we mentioned, to provide an update on the design of the new medical examiner facility that will be at our Sunset campus. I'm joined at the table this, oops, I did that wrong. At least from the one I'm looking at.
Double click on this one here.
Okay, sorry about that. I guess your view is still good. Something happened to my screen here. I'm joined at the table this morning by Lou Jean Marsh, Director of the Department of Health and Environment, and Mike Schott, a principal with PGAV Architects. PGAV's been our lead designer for the courthouse project, and he'll provide most of the information regarding the design of the new facility. So this is our agenda. I'll talk a little bit about the history. Mike will provide a project overview. We'll touch on the schedule. Eugene has some information to update you on regarding the medical examiner, and there's a couple of next steps associated with this project as well. There we go. So a little bit on the history, very quickly. Prior to 2015, I believe the coroner or medical examiner's facility need had been identified through some strategic facility master plans. And then in 2015, I believe it was brought forward again as part of the 2016-2021 CIP planning process. But in 2015, a coroner study was initiated, and that was led by PGAV. And that resulted in the board providing direction to combine this project in with the courthouse project and take it out to the voters for a public safety sales tax initiative question for approval. And it was approved, as you're aware, in 2016. One of the first steps with every project that we go through is to establish goals associated with that project. And certainly Mike and Eugene can speak to some of these as well if they'd like. But you know, we recognize that we weren't performing the number of autopsies that a county of our size and our demographics should be performing. Another goal of this project is to a high-functioning, state-of-the-art facility that's known for excellence and leadership. We wanted to be able to conduct this work in a facility and managed with a program that could be accredited through the National Association of Medical Examiners. Those requirements may be coming to us at some point in the future. And then we wanted to be able to provide more reliable and real-time information on trends and other diseases that could be affecting our community. And so those are the goals that we've set for this project. So I want to acknowledge our team that we've put together, PGAV Architects. Mike Schott is with us. Smith Group, JJR, they were provided expertise on medical examiner facilities and healthcare facilities and lab facilities. Dr. David Fowler was part of this initial study, and he's remained involved to help provide guidance and expertise. McCarthy Building Companies, Eric Dill is with us this morning. He's been providing, their firm has been providing pre-construction services through the design, and then we'll be coming forward here in a couple of weeks with a GMP request for them to start on the construction. And then I want to acknowledge the facilities management team. Our project manager, Janice Phillips, is behind me somewhere, I'm sure. So she's been very instrumental in keeping this project moving forward. We have a number of stakeholders that I'm very appreciative of their involvement and their time and commitment. Certainly the Department of Health and Environment, Lou Jean's team, the district attorney, the Sheriff's Crime Lab has been involved in the process, DTI, GIMS, EMC, and certainly the county coroner and local forensic pathologist advisors. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike, and he'll take you through the design of the building.
Thank you, Brad. My name is Mike Schott. I'm a principal with PGAV Architects. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Thank you. Just to build on Brad's review of the primary goals and objectives of the medical examiner project, it will fulfill a unique and important mission for the county to assist in the objective determination of the cause and manner of death with a trained and professional staff under the leadership of a certified medical examiner, and provide efficient, cost-effective, and reliable investigative results. Supporting the public health and welfare is such an important part of this project in supporting the identification of emerging threats of infectious disease or dangerous drugs in our community, and providing health service providers and law enforcement with the valuable information that they would need to help inform our public. So it's been a really important aspect of the development of the project. The facility will help you support local and regional partnerships for training and workforce development in the field of forensic investigation, and bolster cooperative public health and public safety interagency coordination, which is also extremely important. An incredibly unique building type that combines functional elements including morgue, autopsy, advanced imaging, forensic anthropology, medical legal investigation, and toxicology support for a comprehensive approach to forensic medical examiner services. We've really, I think a primary goal that was expressed by the county, and particularly by Lugene early in our design process, was to design a facility that communicates a respect for the dignity of life, and we've tried to, I think we've accomplished that, and to design a facility also with the health and safety of the people who will work in the building in mind in terms of the environmental quality of the facility itself. Also with a particular sensitivity to the residential community surrounding the Sunset campus, and with a high-quality civic architecture reflective of the county's commitment to our community. And to construct a facility with a construction budget of $16.5 million and a total project cost of $21 million. Let's see if I can advance this.
Excuse me, what's the square footage? Projected square footage?
Go ahead.
No, I believe it's right around
32,977.
Approximately.
Gross. I wanted to just touch on the fact that we had 4 very important visits to 4 facilities in 4 states. These tours provided valuable opportunities to converse with other medical examiner facility administrators and ME operational staff, allowed the design team and the county's team stakeholders to take a firsthand look at best practices at functioning ME facilities and their operations. These tours helped inform both business and operational planning for the facility, as well as functional layouts and workflows, observations and selections of specialty fixtures and equipment with an eye towards durable, long-lasting fit up for the building, and then strategies for really thinking about flexibility and adaptability in the approach to the design. Well, I think I missed one. Is the schedule in there, Brad?
I think it's later.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to just talk a bit about the view on your screen, the campus site plan, campus integration. The new facility, which is in the foreground of the image there, is designed to integrate with the county's Sunset campus, including the Sunset office building, the health services building, and the County Communications Center and Crime Lab, which are on the site just adjacent and to the northeast. So the facility is located with frontage both on Sunset Drive and 118th Street. The design response is really driven by site security, decedent delivery, and universal accessibility for staff and the public who will come to the building. And I would just note that this is not a building that would have a high amount of public traffic, really a very low amount of day-to-day public interface. We've designed the building with sensitivity to the surrounding neighborhood, with landscaped berms and preservation of the existing trees that sort of wrap the county's property to the west and around the radio tower. We did have a public meeting with the neighborhood, and really were well received. I think we responded to the questions that that the residents had, and I believe everybody who participated, and we were pleased to see the turnout, was appreciative of the thoughtfulness that had gone into the design. The building does have a secure perimeter, so staff parking is within a secured fenced area. And I'll talk in a moment, discrete decedent delivery. So really at no time should the public have any observation of sort of the goings on, if you will, of the building, but to keep that as it should be a very private matter. The building's also oriented to take advantage of available sights, views, and daylight, and we've actually introduced natural light into really every working space in the building, including the autopsy areas with diffused and screened natural light. And I think that's one aspect of the design that will elevate your project above others that we visited, is the uplifting and work environment for the staff, as opposed to working in sort of a totally interior environment. So we're excited about that. And then finally, in terms of site integration, civic architecture, the design solution was conceived as a piece of complementary civic architecture, appropriate to the mission of the facility. The exterior materials will complement the adjacent County Communications Center and Crime Lab, constructed at the same high-quality level that you have achieved on your other projects. So I'd like to just walk you through briefly the basic layout of the facility to give you just a high-level idea of how it's arranged. So in the view there, Sunset Drive is to the top and right of that image, and the building forms an L shape with the north part of the L facing 118th Street. So the first component of the building, 32,977 square feet, about 20,000 net assignable square feet, an overall efficiency of around 60%, which for this type of facility, given its demanding infrastructure requirements, is good and appropriate. At the northeast corner of the building is a public entrance. This would provide secure reception, lobby with a man trap for guests that might visit the facility. There is an accessible restroom for visitors in that quadrant, and access to a small contemplative garden just to the exterior of the building. There is a 40-person multi-purpose training and conference room that will be important, I think, to building the partnerships, interagency interactions, and a 14-seat medium conference room, and staff toilets in that area. The next component I'd like to point out is the Sally Port. This is where the decedent delivery would take place. It's behind the secure perimeter of the site. It provides a conditioned, totally enclosed vestibule, if you will, for body transport companies to deliver decedents and actually pick decedents up upon release from the facility. It does have a restroom to accommodate those visitors to the facility. The next chunk is really sort of the primary working area of the facility, and this is the Morgan Autopsy. It's comprised of an intake and decedent accessioning area, and a decedent intake and release cooler and freezer designed to accommodate growth in the use of the facility over the years. 4 autopsy stations in 2 connected suites. 1 additional autopsy station configured in a separate suite to support decomposition cases, and discrete homicide investigations. There is an enclosed along the east side of the facility, sort of in this zone. There is an enclosed and conditioned observation platform to allow law enforcement observation of the autopsy stations and a system to communicate between the autopsy stations and that platform. There is space for advanced imaging, including low-dose X-ray and reserve space for the future installation of CT scan technology, and then a combination of sort of support functions for that area of the building, including evidence storage, histology slide prep, autopsy supply, and a flexible, small sort of office work area for the autopsy techs who are doing a pretty intense job to sort of step away from their work without being outside the secure autopsy zone and get a view to the exterior. The medico-legal investigation component of the building provides a workspace for up to 12 medical legal staff to do their work. They'd be working in rotation, coming in from the field, having investigated death scenes. It has direct field support, including a mudroom and property processing and accessioning areas.
So that will supply for external investigations, I guess would be my word.
Right, and Eugene, you might want to comment on that, but the medical legal investigators are sort of the first responders, if you will, for site evaluation of a scene. Yeah.
That's exactly right, and they would be working in partnership with the law enforcement personnel that would be at the scene. I think the demarcation is the body belongs to the medical examiner, the rest of the scene belongs to law enforcement, but of course that requires a very close amount of communication and coordination at those scene investigations.
Thank you. Very good. The green chunk that popped up just a moment ago is the toxicology lab. So if you can imagine evidence passing through, it's been prepared from the Morgan autopsy, transferred to the tox lab. This would support, there's a refrigerated storage space there for sample storage, supports wet biochemistry for sample prep and processing, and has a flexible analytical instrument lab for GCMS and LCMS equipment, flexible in its configuration to support both ante and post-mortem toxicology in its configuration. There's an opportunity on the north side of the building to take advantage of the diffuse natural light on that side of the building. So the design located the administrative office space there that would include offices for the chief medical examiner and medical examination staff, fellows, administrative assistants, chief forensic investigators, medical legal staff. So flexible, that it can be, it's designed on a module so that it can be reconfigured over time, knowing that your operational approach to the building deserves some flexibility. And then in the center, sort of located to maximize the efficiency of the distribution of the mechanical, electrical, UPS, telecom systems that serve the building, is a building support core, which really provides the infrastructure to support the building operation. So this animation, maybe I have to click on this to make it go. Does it go? Okay, there you go. It's not going on my screen, but that's fine. Just sort of a fly through or around here as we start. Approaching the project, driving north on Sunset, you can begin to see on the east side that opaque or translucent observation corridor along the face of the building, and then as you swing to the northeast, the more transparent entrance to the building and the civic face to make the building approachable and welcoming. The north facade is largely glazed to take advantage of the indirect north light and bring a lot of daylight into the office and administrative area. As you approach the entrance, you will enter the secure lobby of the building. And just in front of you there, sort of behind that LCD screen, is a private restroom for guests. And then the building reception through the window there in front, and then secure access into the more secure part of the public part of the building, which is the 40-seat training room, which you see here, a flexible, reconfigurable space. And then stepping away from that, sort of moving back up towards the entrance, and then if you were to take a right when you come into the building, you'd be looking through that office space. That'll give you a sense of the modular office configuration, as well as the private office and conference configuration on the left. And then as we proceed here, you'll see, I think, a glimpse into a fairly, well, to your left, there's the toxicology lab, so you'll have views into the lab. As I mentioned, we're trying to bring ample daylight into the building. The toxicology lab will be flexible in its configuration with mobile lab casework and overhead utility distribution with environmental conditions to support the important analytical equipment there. There's a small staff break room, kitchenette on the west end of the building, and we deliberately positioned the office and the softer spaces like the break room on the west side, closest to the closest residence, private single-family home, which is there, and then access out to the secure staff parking lot. And then I think you'll swing in here into the sally port, so you can see the secure gate. Only authorized body transport companies or staff will be allowed into the perimeter. You would enter the sally port. Those vehicles then would be able to be received by the ME facility staff. The decedents accessioned into the facility through the accession area, which is sort of the first functional space. To the left there, you would see the entrances to the decedent cooler and freezer area that's sized for both intake and release and holding decedents' bodies. Or a glimpse into the investigative medical legal or the autopsy technician work area. And then as you move around to the east side of the building, to the right there, you'll see the autopsy stations, which are well equipped to address the functional requirements. The decomp suite is a private, sort of a privately, more securely enclosed area. And then you're sort of just back in a corridor there for a moment. But hopefully that begins to give you a sense of the layout of the building and the functional flow. It's really all designed around functionality of the important work that the staff will be doing in the building. A little glimpse of the garden there on the northeast. And then back to the lobby. All right.
Let me ask one question that was certain to come up. As far as LEED certification, are we building to a certain standard, or are we going to pursue the certification or not?
No, we're not planning to pursue the certification. We're incorporating LEED standards. I don't know if we were to certify to what level we would achieve. Maybe Mike could elaborate on that.
First and foremost, our approach to any lab-intensive building like this is to work in cost-effective, smart strategies for reducing energy consumption. So the building is equipped with heat recovery, high-performance LED lighting systems, for example, a well-designed thermal envelope to reduce heat loss and heat gain, and high-performance materials. If you were to equate the building to a LEED scale or a rating or certification system, we are in the LEED Silver area of sustainability.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Ostrass.
Mike, have we considered solar panels on top of the building? I noticed the pitch and the slope of certain areas of the...
Right. Alternative energy is not something that we have incorporated into the design at this time, Commissioner. Our experience with the several projects actually is that, believe it or not, the photovoltaic payback is still sort of out there in the 10-year plus sort of range. So given the budget that we had to work with, we were really focused on building as much capability and robustness into the infrastructure that's serving the autopsy and morgue primarily.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ashcraft.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to follow up on Jason's. So basically, you're saying the return on investment for the solar panels just isn't there right now.
It certainly is something
by
that-
going to a silver lead type of concept, you're incorporating a lot of the green that we need to do.
Yes, yes, sir. I think that's the short. You're accurate in your assessment. I think the return is improving, but the first cost in investment in alternative energy, be it solar or wind, is still significant. And
okay, all right, Mr. Ashcraft.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reinhardt, I think you said this. This facility will be in District 5, and I haven't heard too many concerns, but the one that has popped up a couple of times, and I'll look over at Mr. Waters, is the maintenance of the berming. In years past, there were some concerns that the berms were not well maintained. So, and I think that has been rectified, but that was one thing that came up because some residents still have a little bit of a memory for that. So Mr. Waters is nodding his head appropriately. So hopefully that will not be an issue, but I did want to mention that had come up before.
Okay.
So the other thing I was wanting to ask is, you made the comment about the efficiency of this operation. At some point, we can discuss it offline. I'd be interested in kind of on a per unit basis, the efficiency of this operation versus what we're currently doing and how that compares.
Okay. Mr. Allen.
Couple questions. The new medical examiner, based on her experience and being involved in her prior job of building the facility, has she looked at this plan extensively and comfortable with that, or?
Well, thank you for that question, Commissioner. Yes, we have had the opportunity to share the design with Dr. Peterson, who will join us as the Chief Medical Examiner. She did provide some significant input to our design team. She also offered us an opportunity to come again to tour the Jackson County facility and actually to do some autopsy observation to sort of help our design team further understand some of the issues and concerns that she had raised. So yes, I think she's very comfortable with the proposed design of our facility.
Okay, thank you. And then my favorite question, signage. This building may be more, I know the courthouse may be in a little bit different situation on signage, but this one appears may be appropriate for a monument sign with a county logo, medical exam, whatever terminology you want to use, but maybe would like to make sure that's addressed, so.
We do have plans for a monument sign. It will match the look and feel of the Sunset campus in general, if you're asking, and I believe we'll have the county logo on it as well, with the medical examiner's office, I believe, might be the text. But we'll review that, socialize that with everybody, and make sure it's appropriate and correct.
Mr. Allen, why would the courthouse be different?
I just on the signage they have on the building, I think is maybe appropriate not to put a logo on that, is my observation. And I know they're working on the monument signs on that, so maybe just a little bit different. Okay. I would understand that.
Mr. Brown, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chairman. I have two. Mr. Reinhardt, the mountain of dirt that is currently located on the site where I saw last week where we're going to be building this, who's responsible for relocating that dirt? There's a lot.
The county will be relocating as part of the project. So we'll be relocating it and creating two smaller berms below the radio tower there, and making sure we're not interfering with access that's needed to the radio tower. But there is some space there that we can use to take that dirt over there. And that's a lot less expensive than hauling it, miles off site.
Trucking is
So,
expensive.
yeah.
Okay, my other question is, and this is one you're probably going to need to get back to me on. This is probably not going to one you're going to have offhand, but in quickly looking through the numbers, it looks like we're at about $540 a foot on the courthouse. Looks like we're at about $640 a foot on this facility. I'd like just some rationale, and
Okay.
$100 a foot difference is considerable as a percentage. I'd like to understand the difference in that.
Okay. I can, I believe, add one thing, and I'll ask Mike to confirm this, but this does have some very specialized ventilation systems associated with it, so that could be a driver. I think the mechanical cost per square foot is going to be higher versus a courthouse where it's an assembly area versus a laboratory type environment. So, but we'll
I don't
get
doubt
some
that it should be
information on
more.
that.
My concern is not that it's more, it's that it's $100 a foot more. What are we getting at $100 a foot over 30,000 feet? What are we getting for that 100 a foot? That's where I understand it's going to be more. It's also a smaller building, which is going to run up your average costs. But just trying to make sure I understand what's in that extra 100. What extra are we buying with that?
I think the scale is an appropriate observation. The building itself is about $500 a foot, maybe just a little bit lower than that. The site's $68 across the square footage of the building, so about $568. That's construction cost. But as Brad said, the mechanical infrastructure for this type of building is considerably more robust than a civic courthouse type facility, all the way through the selection of materials for the ductwork, the exhaust capacities, the energy recovery. There's a large amount of stainless steel in the building with automated doors for the movement of gurneys, the cold rooms and freezers. So there's a lot of intense, I would call it almost hospital quality type construction that differentiates it from a courthouse type building.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned it, and it was an item during the discussion, the separate observation area for law enforcement or other necessary individuals who are not doing the audit. There will be that separate room. Will there be cameras, et cetera, that can be watched also in more detail than just observation?
I think one of the things that actually Dr. Peterson was very helpful in, there's a sound communication system between the autopsy observation platform and the autopsy studios. And then there's a variety of photographic techniques which are very important to the processing of decedents and the autopsy process that will provide flexibility. A lot of that can be portable equipment that can be positioned by the medical examiners as they need to, as the autopsy process is proceeding. But then there's ability to sort of pipe that imagery to different areas of the building. There's still a lot of utilization of still imagery. So depending on the medical examiner, I think you will find a difference in approach to how they choose to utilize video and photographic.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Work.
All right. Yeah. Okay, continue, please.
Okay. Just to comment on the process or the schedule of the project, Brad mentioned the programming and concept study that was completed in January of 2016. The study provided recommendations for the ME facility's size and capacity based on county population growth projections, and for the need to develop a facility that would support NAME accreditation, and that's accreditation by the National Association of Medical Examiners. The building and planning design process began in earnest about this time last year with the benchmarking tours. Brad mentioned Dr. David Fowler. I think you have met Dr. Fowler, the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of Maryland, provided very insightful assistance based on his multi-decade experience with the development of an operational and business plan, as well as review of the building program. We had the valuable input and participation in our design process of Assistant District Attorney Chris McMullen, County Coroner Dr. Prosser, ME advisors Dr. Handler and Dr. Glenn and Dr. Peterson. So really a very, I think, broad and sort of diverse in a way, collection of professionals who provided some great insight. Your project has benefited from the early selection and integration of McCarthy Construction Company as part of the project team. They have provided valuable, timely pre-construction services, including cost estimating, engagement with the local subcontractor market, in a market that's heating up in part with your projects, and constructability and quality control reviews. I'd also like to just thank the county's facilities planning and operations staff who've been an integral part of this team. Janice Phillips, Robert Ives, Angela Joplin, Tara Lewis, Crime Lab Director Capps and his team, and the county gyms, IT, building and grounds, and housekeeping staff, and of course Lou Jean has been a tremendous leader throughout the process, so thank you.
Okay.
And then finally, we issued construction documents mid-September. McCarthy received competitive bids on October 10th and has submitted a preliminary GMP, which is now under review, and I believe is being finalized for your consideration in the coming days.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continue, please.
So this is the announcement of our Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Diane Peterson, is not news to all of you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Dr. Peterson and her credentials because you have received all of that information. We do feel very fortunate to have secured her services. She is not only an experienced forensic pathologist and an experienced administrator in her capacity as Chief Medical Examiner of Jackson County, but she's also shown considerable regional leadership in areas of mass fatality, working with MARC regional partners as we plan and prepare as a community for what we hope will never happen, which is the occasion of a mass fatality here in Johnson County or somewhere else in the region. There's this whole interesting shift as we think about moving from exclusively a coroner system, which is the predominant system not only in the state of Kansas, but for actually 11 other states across the nation have exclusively a coroner system. Actually, back in 2009, the National Academy of Sciences made a recommendation that the coroner system be abolished and that there be this transition to a medical examiner system. Coroners have a long history in this country. The first one was appointed in 1636 in Plymouth County, Massachusetts. And one of their early responsibilities was really tax collection on behalf of the deceased. So I certainly am not an expert on the history of the coroner system, but I thought that was really interesting. So in Kansas, of course, there is a statute that requires that each county have a coroner. And so really, our system will be sort of a blend of coroner and medical examiner. And so we've benefited so much from Dr. Prosser's long experience as coroner of this county, and he has been extremely helpful to us both in the design of our facility, in thinking about our business and operational planning, and really in working now with Dr. Peterson on this transition of responsibility. I know that you all appointed Dr. Peterson as a deputy coroner at an action last month under our current configuration, and I'm really delighted that Dr. Prosser has expressed an interest and desire to continue to serve and to be a deputy coroner under Dr. Peterson. Now, of course, I know that Dr. Peterson hasn't been appointed as our coroner, and that is an action that we'll be working with our legal department and Dr. Prosser to bring before you in the weeks to come. Because Dr. Prosser's current appointment will expire in January. So a new coroner needs to be appointed to be effective January 14th.
So just, that's I will call it a technically we would be compliant with state statutes, is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
And that would effectuate that compliance.
Because as I understand it from our legal department, if we were to convert completely to a medical examiner model, that would require statutory change. And so by using this blended arrangement, we can continue to meet our statutory obligations, but then really transition to this newer model of examining the cause and manner of death.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm happy to answer any questions, of course, about Dr. Peterson, about the role of the chief medical examiner. I know one of the points on this PowerPoint slide, and I think it is important that I point that out to you, is that Dr. Peterson, of course, would not want to go 15 months or so without actually practicing her expertise in the area of autopsies, forensic pathology. So she will be doing a certain number. I mean, that's to be determined and probably really driven more by need and how it fits in with her administrative responsibilities. But she will be performing some autopsies beginning in January or February and then continuing on until we're ready to open our facility in hopefully late first quarter, early second quarter of 2020.
Okay, all right. Mr. Klicka.
I don't know if this goes for Regina or to you, Maury, here. When fully staffed, what will be the staff complement at the medical examiner's office?
Our startup staff right now is projected to be 8. It will be comprised of the chief medical examiner and a deputy medical examiner, a chief toxicologist, a chief medical legal death investigator, 2 autopsy technicians that will actually be assisting in the performance of autopsies, and 2 administrative staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right.
All right, one last quick slide, our next step slide. Very briefly, in 2 weeks, we'll be coming forward for a GMP amendment to the contract with McCarthy Building Companies. This will be the only GMP for this project. It won't be in phases such as we're doing for the courthouse. We are on budget. We have Mike mentioned a $21 million overall project budget and a $16.5 million construction budget, and we are tracking very closely to that number. So we're looking very good to be coming forward in 2 weeks for an approval of construction. And then the last item here, groundbreaking says late 2018. I think just yesterday we got this scheduled for December 13th, and I believe that's early afternoon, 1 or 1:30. So December 13th will be groundbreaking for the new medical examiner facility. And
60 degrees and sunny, Mr. Chairman.
That's up to staff. Yeah.
Good response.
So with that, we would be glad to answer any additional questions you have.
Well, one similar question to earlier, have we issued the bonds for this facility yet? We have, haven't we? Yeah.
The other issue.
It was part of the other original issue. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. Good report. Appreciate it. And so we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.